Hello and welcome to News Central Television. The headlines at this hour. Nigeria Supreme Court affirms Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba governors' election victories. Human Rights Watch alleges Burkina Faso military drone strikes killed 60 civilians. Zimbabwe's opposition leader Chamisa quits CCC 2 years after its formation. I am Lekon Obanjo. Details to come your way shortly. News Central now at this hour begins with court matters in West Africa, where Nigeria Supreme Court has upheld the election of Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State. The court, in a unanimous decision by a 5-member panel led by Justice Kudirat Kekiriekun, on Thursday dismissed as lacking in merit an appeal the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Tonye Cole, filed to challenge the outcome of the governorship election that was held in the state on March 18, 2023. In the lead judgment that was delivered by Justice Ibrahim Salawa, the Apex Court said it found no reason to dislodge the concurrent verdicts of the Court of Appeal and the Rivers State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, which upheld Fubara's victory at the poll. The court held that Cole did not establish that the election was not conducted in compliance with provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. In a related development, the Supreme Court has affirmed the election of Ahmed Aliyu as Sokoto State Governor. Reading the lead judgment, Justice Tijani Abubakar dismissed the appeal of the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate Saidu Umar, agreeing with the reasoning of the court below. Similarly, the Supreme Court has upheld the election of Abukefas as Taraba State Governor. Reading the lead judgment, Justice Lawal Garba dismissed the appeal by the New Nigeria People's Party and its governorship candidate Yahaya Sani for filing an incomplete record of appeal. Away from election matters, the Ondo State House of Assembly on Thursday screened and confirmed Olayide Adelami as the Deputy Governor of Ondo State. The development came 24 hours after the Governor, Aiyedatiwa, picked Adelami as the Deputy Governor-nominee and sent his name to the Assembly for screening and approval. The Assembly confirmed the nominee after the consideration of a report by the House Election Committee presided over by the Speaker, Olamide Oladiji, during the plenary session of the Assembly. The House had earlier conducted a screening exercise for the nominee at the Assembly complex before the plenary. In his response, Adelami appreciated Governor Aiyedatiwa for nominating him, promising not to betray the confidence reposed in him. To discuss this, I'm being joined by a legal practitioner and political analyst, Taiwo Ojumu. Mr. Taiwo Ojumu, thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.
Kindly share with us what factors and considerations might have influenced Governor Aiyedatiwa's nomination of Adelami, a former deputy clerk to the National Assembly, as the new Deputy Governor of Ondo State, following the dissolution, of course, of the State Executive Council.
All right, thank you very much. I think the first consideration would be the wealth of experience the man will bring to the table. Like rightly observed, he was Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly for long, so the man is full of experience. But that aside, another major consideration, which a lot of us believe must have led to, must have delayed the nomination to this point, would be whether or not to take, the idea of nominating from a particular central district. In Ondo State, for instance, we have 3 central districts. We have North, we have Central, we have South. And usually, from the return of democracy in 1999, it has been that whenever there's a southern governor, the deputy governor has to come from the central. Now, whenever there is a northern governor, a governor from the northern central district, there has to be, the deputy governor has to come from the southern central district. And so this appears to be a little upset in the arrangement that has been in place since 1999. because the new deputy governor, the man who was nominated, who was going to be deputy governor by the time he's sworn in, is from the Northern Central District, particularly Ondo. And then it is believed that this had to happen, even though it appears more like an upset of the political arrangement, but this had to happen to compensate, as it were, the people of Owo who lost their dear son in office, the late Governor Aiyedatiwa. And so that, I believe, is a major factor that that bettered this arrangement, or that bettered the nomination of Adelami. And like I said earlier, the man has a lot of, he has a wealth of experience to bring to the table. Yes.
So would that mean that there wouldn't be any challenge or any obstacle in approving that particular nomination for him, of course, by the State House of Assembly? Do you think it's just going to be just take a bow and go? Is that what it's going to be now?
Yes. Yes, it's the man is eminently qualified. Apart from being qualified, I understand that the people who have been on pins and needles looking forward to hearing who eventually emerged as the nominee, were very excited yesterday that there was jubilation in the town of Owo when the man was eventually picked. And if you ask me, I think it's a very fair choice and decision. Aiyedatiwa has about 1 year, if he were to be alive, he had like a year to go. And so picking somebody from his hometown, it appears to be a very fair decision. Yes.
So what about Taiwo Ojumu, who was also appointed as a secretary to the state government, and Abayomi Olasonya as the chief protocol of course, chief of protocol? So how would you describe these nominations? Also, these people, their pedigree and their ability to drive the objectives and priorities of Lucky Aiyedatiwa as the governor of the state?
All right, thank you very much. Let me proceed by saying that the dissolution of the state executive, as well as some other political appointments, essays and like yesterday, was a decision that was long overdue. Long overdue in the sense that a lot of people expected that the moment the governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, was sworn in on 27th of December, that he will hit the ground running by solving the cabinet and then making, his own appointment. But the man is a very smart man. He took his time, he made consultations, and as you can see now, yesterday, a lot of people did not see it coming, because what we heard before now was that we wait till the end of the burial, the funeral ceremony of the late governor. But now, yesterday, we heard the breaking news. Now, speaking of those who were appointed yesterday, Honorable Taiwo Ojumu, if you know the man, you know that the man is someone who has been in power, who has been on the corridor, who has held several offices in time past. As a matter of fact, he was the SSG that handed over to the SSG that just left office yesterday. So he is very experienced when it comes to the job. So I believe that once he comes on board with the grand running, so the job of the SSG is not new to him, was there before now. But for the COP, that's the chief of protocol, usually if you look at the trend, governors like to appoint their confidants, people who are close to them as the chief of protocol, because usually the chief of protocol is the one in charge of the itinerary and the movement of Mr. Governor. So yes, I believe that the governor has his reasons for choosing the man he chose as chief of protocol. But I can't speak much more on that. But for Honorable Taiwo Ojumu, he's put down the SSD. The man is full of experience. He was there before now, so I believe he will bring a lot to the table.
When you look at these political compensations that you said earlier, looking at appointments being made based on a particular person and his nativity, and now for a governor having to choose certain people who believe would drive his conversation or drive his administrative goal, should that be the focus or the priority of government when it comes to delivering the agenda and, of course, bringing about transformation for a state? Should it be about political compensations, somebody's state of origin above the person's pedigree, portfolio, profile, and what the person can deliver? I'd like to find out.
All right, I actually agree with you that in picking or in appointing any person for an office, for a public office, chief of the constitution should not be whether the person is from northern, central district, south, or central. It should be on merit. It should be that the person has the capacity to drive change, to drive positive change. Yes, but like I said earlier, for the ones I know, amongst those who have been appointed, there are people who are experienced, who are competent in their own way, and yes, that should not be the primary. I mean, whether you are from a particular area or a particular zone should not be the primary, what's it called, primary parameter.
Objective, yeah.
Yeah, but of course, it's also a factor too. But that should not it should not undermine, or it should not take precedence over competence and capacity to deliver. So I agree with you.
Taiwo Ojumu, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
To security matters now, several aggrieved groups in Nigeria have called on governments to ensure proper investigation and the speedy prosecution of perpetrators of the Christmas Eve attack of 2023 that left scores of citizens dead in the Mango area of Plateau State. The coalition, led by leaders from various ethnic groups in the state, made the call in the nation's capital, Abuja, calling for the rehabilitation and adequate compensation of the victims and survivors of attacks witnessed across the country and states.
The location of those people tormenting us is not unknown, but the security agencies have refused to act. And we're calling on the world today to know that their hideouts are not in any way in a mystery. We know their hideouts. But why have they not been visited?
The Plateau situation calls for an urgent action. We are here for you to listen to these people themselves. They are now in camps with their need for food, medicine, clothes, and shelter. We are calling on all humanitarian agencies and the general public to visit the survivors and assist in every way possible.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has ended his four-nation Africa trip in Angola, where he met with President João Lourenço in the capital, Luanda. After years of estrangement with Washington during the Cold War, the African nation has seen growing common ground with the United States. The U.S. diplomat began his trip in Cape Verde, continuing on to Ivory Coast and Nigeria. On Thursday, it was to meet President João Lourenço, who visited U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House just 2 months ago. But first, he toured a gleaming new science museum where he hailed Angola's participation both in the U.S. Space Cooperation Program and a new initiative to bring genetically modified seeds to developing countries. We'll now go on a short break. We'll be back with more stories. To stay with us. Many thanks for being there. Let's bring you some health stories now. Health experts have raised an alarm that a new species of mosquito is driving up malaria infections in Africa, fueling a growing public health concern. According to the World Health Organization, the Anopheles stevensii mosquito, shortened by some entomologists to Steve, has so far been detected in 7 African countries. The mosquito, which originated in South Asia, was first detected in Djibouti in 2012. Since then, malaria rates in the country have grown exponentially. The new species has since spread to Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana. Joining me on the news to discuss this issue is a consultant community physician with loving gaze at St. Kizito Clinics, Lagos State, Dr. Ndidi Umera Nwosu. Dr. Nwosu, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this new strain.
Thank you very much for having me, and hello, viewers.
So how significant is the threat posed by the Steve mosquito in terms of malaria transmission, and what challenges does it pose when it comes to combating it?
Well, the Anopheles stevensii mosquito is not actually a new strain in the world. It has been there in Asia, and but it's new in Africa. And it is a significant threat because, as you rightly said, it increased the epidemic of malaria in Djibouti when it was discovered by 30%. And we know we've done a lot to reduce the burden of malaria in the world. Initially, it was killing over 1 million people globally, and it went down to 407, has started climbing again. Last year, it killed over 630,000 people. So you can imagine if we now have another mosquito variant, the Anopheles stevens. The problem with this particular mosquito is that it does not respond to insecticides. I mean, it's not killed by insecticides that are used in insecticide-treated nets. So you can imagine that if we're giving our nets to our mothers and our children, and this mosquito gets through, it can still carry the plasmodium that kills and causes malaria to our children and our adults as well. The other problem with this mosquito is that it's not just the falciparum variant that it carries, not just Plasmodium falciparum, which is the commonest form of malaria we have here in Africa and in Nigeria in particular, but it can also potentially carry Plasmodium vivax. And the problem with vivax is that it stays in the liver, and it's difficult to treat. It just stays in a moribund state, in the liver, in the hypnozoid stage. And so getting rid of the malaria becomes quite difficult. So beyond carrying the usual strain of falciparum that is the deadliest and commonest in Nigeria, it also causes this other malaria from becoming a problem here in Nigeria. And another problem is that the other mosquitoes tend to spend more time in naturally occurring reservoirs, fresh water, and you find it more in the rural areas. But this particular species finds itself in the urban setting. So someone that has a tank or unused tires, water collected in artificial containers can actually breed the mosquito, and so increase the prevalence of malaria in places where malaria was not as common. We do know that malaria is driven by poverty, lack of healthcare, and so on. So you can imagine what will happen to our urban settings, particularly the slums and so on, where we have a lot of collection of water in artificial collecting sites, and that would increase the malaria and take back all the work that has been done over the years to roll back malaria. So yes, it's definitely a problem.
So this particular strain that was actually noticed between 2012 and now, one would have thought that experts in the medical field would have come up with a particular kind of drug or a measure or an intervention to help cure those who might be infected or roll back the transmission frequency of this particular virus, if I could put it that way. So why is it that it's been hard to get treatment? Because earlier on you said that it's hard to cure and the resistance level is high. So why is it that between 2012 and now we haven't had a clear-cut drug or medicine that could inhibit it?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'll use up to try and clarify some of the things I did say. There are three things here. There's the mosquito. The mosquito is what is called the Steve mosquito, and it is carrying the let me call it the plasmodium that actually causes malaria. Okay, so it's the protozoan plasmodium. There are 4 different types of plasmodia out there, and the commonest one that causes malaria in our side is Plasmodium falciparum, carried by the mosquito of the Anopheles species. Now, there are many Anopheles species out there. The commonest one we used to have in Nigeria, we still have in Nigeria, is the Anopheles gambiense, okay? And then we also have the Anopheles arabiense and so on. Now, these are the ones that were carrying the Plasmodium falciparum. But what we are seeing is that a new Anopheles has been imported, as it were, into Africa through the Horn, that is through Djibouti. And we believe it is by, the ships and so on that these mosquitoes came in. Now, these mosquitoes are able to carry both the falciparum plasmodium and potentially can also carry the vivax species of the plasmodium.
Okay.
So there are drugs for these things, okay? There are drugs for the plasmodium. We're not having problems with that. But we do have challenges in treating Plasmodium vivax, which is not very common here, for one. It's more common in Asia. And so, yes, they do manage it, but it is a more difficult one. It's not like falciparum that is in the blood that you can easily see it. Vivax, you may not see it in the blood because it has long incubating periods in the liver. And this is the reason why someone may not have actually been bitten by a mosquito if they have the Plasmodium vivax form of malaria. They may not have been bitten by a mosquito carrying Plasmodium falciparum, but the vivax that was lodged in their liver long ago comes out again because it was in the hypnocyte stage in the liver. So there are drugs for these things, but I'm just describing the challenges. Okay. Remember, that is the question of the challenges. But as for the Anopheles, the Stevens mosquito, the Steve mosquito, as it were, the challenges we have is that insecticide-treated nets, which are used to prevent these mosquitoes from, getting to the body of to get to our bodies and and have the transfer of the plasmodium. The insecticide used to treat those nets are not effective against this Stevens mosquito. This is the problem. So a lot of research is going on, and there have been some gains. In fact, they're trying to get some larvicides that can treat the mosquito at the larval stage, okay? And that's what they've been trying to use in India. But here in Africa, we've just noted that these mosquitoes are coming in. We've seen what it has done in Djibouti, and then suddenly we've seen it now here in Nigeria, particularly in the north. So what we need to do is to first of all figure out how much of this Stevens Anopheles is here in Nigeria. And let us now see, we need to have a surveillance to see what's going on so that we can put the right things in place to combat this Anopheles mosquito, which could increase the spread of malaria from falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum or Plasmodium vivax. That's the...
Okay, so as research works are ongoing, what role now can community engagement and probably awareness play in supporting malaria control efforts, particularly in urban areas that you mentioned earlier?
Okay, so what we need to do is what you already do. One, to create this awareness. When rollback malaria was introduced earlier on in the millennium, we found out that we did roll back malaria, and we actually achieved millennial development goals as far as malaria was concerned. So that was awesome. Unfortunately, with a lot of things going on, we see now that population continues to increase, rising epidemics, including the COVID, and this increase in the number of resistant strains of both Anopheles mosquito and some of the species of Plasmodium. The rapid tests that were introduced, some of them are not able to detect some of the malaria we have, so it gives you a false negative. And finally, financial constraints because of a lot of conflicting competitive requests for the money, that the little resources that we have. That has all almost started scattering the great work that has been done with all the strategies that have been put in place. So right now, what we're trying to see is how we can all recognize that if we think that malaria has gone, we need to tell ourselves, ourselves here that malaria is still there. Okay. And even though it went down, it's climbing now. So we want our communities, we want them to recognize this fact. And I'm happy that's why you're doing this show. The second thing we also want to do is not to ignore all the other approaches that we have in fighting malaria. While we have this significant concern with the Steve mosquito, as it were, we're happy to say that now there have been 2 vaccines that have been introduced and approved and recommended by the WHO. So with time, we hope to see more vaccination happening. So we want our communities to be ready to receive these vaccinations when they are offered. In this new climate, when people have all kinds of fears about vaccinations, it's good for us to recognize that it's a natural thing for us to have vaccines, because that is the natural way our body even fights diseases.
Okay.
It's when our white blood cells see that happen. So we want our communities to recognize that vaccination is coming in, and we should actually embrace it. And then, of course, ensuring that we do tests and go to the right facilities to get our drugs and the correct doses, so that we don't increase the chances of resistance. Then in our homes, let us put away empty containers where water can collect.
Okay.
Those are simple things that we can do. You know, now that we know that there are mosquitoes that like to stay in our buckets of water, leaving them open for them to breed is not helpful for anybody at all, particularly when you know that some of the malaria might now become difficult ones to treat.
Okay, Dr. Ndidi Meranwosu, thank you so much for the education. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, away from that, the Human Rights Writers Association has dismissed calls for the scrapping of Nigeria's National Youth Service Corps program over the escalating insecurity being witnessed in the country. The national coordinator of the Human Rights Advocacy Group made this known while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, saying that the call is mischievous and not in the interest of the country. It says that the program has made much gain since its inception and maintains that it is not in the interest of the nation to be scrapped.
The call for to end NYSC doesn't make any logical sense from the angle of insecurity, because insecurity is not generated by NYSC. It's not NYSC that started insecurity, and NYSC has been there even when Nigeria wasn't having this kind of insecurity. Why do you have insecurity? You have insecurity because those who are supposed to solve insecurity are benefiting from insecurity. Insecurity, terrorism is a franchise for heads of security institutions. So even if you want to stop NYSC, it is not going to stop insecurity. It's not going to stop insecurity. In fact, you are creating more avenues for those who are actually sabotaging our nation.
We also tell you that several youths from across the 36 states of Nigeria have been trained in methods of effective oversight using the global I Follow the Money model as part of measures to improve transparency and accountability in the country. This was during a capacity building and training session in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, which also saw the launch of the Project Trust, an initiative to build trust between government and citizens. Amadine Uyi tells us more.
In attendance were participants selected as part of a capacity building training on the globally acclaimed I Follow the Money model, which seeks to promote transparency and accountability at subnational levels of government in the country. The training also saw the launch of the Project Trust, an initiative to improve trust between government and citizens.
Today, Connected Development has brought representatives from the 6th geopolitical zone in Nigeria for a retreat to build their capacity for the next 2 days, because we're starting a new project called Project Trust. We believe that from the aftermath of the campaigns and elections, we must deepen trust in our society, because the most important ingredient of every democratic society is trust.
The participants were called from across the 36 states of the Federation and aims to help the public build trust.
This project would help to build back public trust, galvanize public interest in ensuring better service delivery across grassroots communities in Nigeria. So we've selected people from community-based organizations, civil society organizations, and faith-based organizations that would champion Project Trust across their states and across their region.
The 6 states that we brought here today are representing different community of lives, different walks of life. Both the CDCs, media, all of them are present to see how they can build a community of practice that would ensure that citizens are part of governance processes.
Some of the participants highlighted their key takeaways from the training.
We learned that we must build a trust between the government and the citizens for them to be able to understand what this government is doing, to demand accountability, because where there is no trust between the government and citizen, there is no accountability and there is no transparency in the process.
We've learned that it is good for the government to be inclusive and not to leave any part of the citizens behind. So, for us to ensure that everybody is included in our government, that public facilities are open for persons with disability.
The project also aims at galvanizing civil society organizations and community-based organizations through the formation of a community of practice in the 6 states of Kwara, Anambra, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Yobe, and Osun. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uhi.
Coming up on the news, Zimbabwe's opposition leader Chamisa exits CCC party. Details of this and other stories to come your way shortly. Many thanks for being there. The news continues in West Africa, where Human Rights Watch says 3 Burkina Faso military drone strikes that the government claimed targeted Islamist fighters killed at least 60 civilians and injured scores more at 2 crowded markets and a packed funeral in Burkina Faso and Mali between August and November 2023. According to the organization, the drone strikes violated laws of war prohibitions against attacks that do not discriminate between civilians and military targets and were apparent war crimes. It added that the Burkinabe government should promptly ensure independent, impartial and transparent inquiries into the attacks, appropriately prosecute those responsible, and adequately compensate victims and their families. Government-controlled media had reported that all 3 attacks killed Islamist fighters and made no reference to civilian casualties. And from the West, we move to Southern Africa, where Citizens Coalition for Change President Nelson Chamisa has announced that he has quit the CCC barely 2 years after its formation. In a 13-page statement, the politician cited the conduct of the 2023 elections, the delimitation report, electoral violence, and the post-election recalls of elected CCC candidates, among others, as reasons for his leaving CCC. Earlier this month, CCC National Deputy Spokesperson Gift Ostalo Siziba sent social media into overdrive when he hinted that the Nelson Chamisa-led party is dumping the party name for a new one. It was reported that Chamisa has all but lost control of the party as self-imposed interim Secretary General Sengezil Chabangu has been wreaking havoc since October 2023. It recalled 15 members of parliament, 17 councillors and 9 senators, triggering the December 7 by-election. Staying in the South, South Africa's Department of Transport says a total of 1,427 people were killed in road crashes across the country during the 2023-2024 festive season. Minister of Transport Sindiziwe Chikunga at a media briefing said the figure was lower than the previous festive season when 1,452 people were killed in road crashes. According to Chikunga, human factors contributed 80.8% of the crashes, vehicle factors contributed 8.8%, while environmental factors contributed 10.4% as a result of heavy rainfall and storms. She noted that the drunk driving remains the main cause behind road accidents in the country, followed by reckless and negligent behavior on the road, adding that most of the people who lost their lives were between the ages of 25 and 44. In business, the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation Limited and the Ministry of Finance have agreed to remit all their dollar revenues to the Central Bank of Nigeria to boost the nation's external reserves and foreign exchange flows into the country. The Apex Bank's Governor Olayide Adelami disclosed this during his keynote speech at the launching of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group Macroeconomic Outlook Report for 2024 on Wednesday. According to the governor, the CBN is currently implementing a comprehensive strategy to improve FX liquidity in the short, medium, and long term. He said the Naira was currently undervalued and with coordinated measures from both the fiscal and monetary side, it would experience genuine price discovery in the new term. And now joining me on the news to discuss this is a Research and Insight Associate at Nürnberger, that is Samuel Oyekomi. Mr. Oyekomi, it's nice to have you join us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.
So this plan sounds ambitious, but if production output is not stepped up, would it be impactful?
Of course, the expectation is that you would want, of course, productivity in the Nigerian economy to soar up in a bid to improve export earnings. Of course, that's the only way, one of the ways by which you can have as much FX liquidity, because then again, when you look at the market, you want to have a relatively stable exchange rate. And you're seeing the fact that the liquidity in the official market is quite low. During the last 3 days, we've been trading less than 100 million. We've seen around 69, 70 million dollars being traded. And of course, when you have limited supply in the market, the chances are you see high volatility, and then you see the exchange rate moving from 800 at some point going above $1,000 to $1. If we want to be able to ensure that we have a genuine price and pricing system in the official markets, you want to increase export earnings, you want to ensure that FX liquidity is at par in the country, and that can be achieved by attracting foreign investment in form of FDIs and FDIs. I think, of course, productivity is quite important for us to get to exactly where the governor of CBN supposed we will be getting to.
So aside productivity and export volumes, that's not really encouraging as of now. There's also the issue of debt obligation that Nigeria has to both international and local creditors, and some people feel that this would be a big issue. So wouldn't that also affect this particular plan?
To be honest, I don't see how that's going to happen. Of course, the federal government has their debt plan, debt acquiring new loans and then payments of their initial loans externally and domestically. I don't see how that is going to affect. Usually what we want to ensure is that we have a smart FX liquidity in the country. We have our external reserve being shored up either through our inflows from foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, or export earnings. As you can see from the news that the NNPC and the Federal Ministry of Finance have also come together to agree that export earnings from crude oil exports will be channeled through the CBN. And we expect that it's going to help improve the external reserve, which is really not in a very good state right now, $32 billion. Every economy, or the Nigerian economy, would expect that, despite the fact that we do produce a lot of crude oil, and we could have external reserve at the excess about $40 billion. If we're able to achieve that, I don't see how debt problems will really impact on FX stability in the country.
On the other hand, the central bank governor said that Nigeria's inflation will drop to about 21% in 2024. Is that possible, and would it influence the real economy positively?
Yeah, to be frank, that is very possible. Currently, we are dealing with inflation numbers of 28.92%, and you would expect to get to 21%, of course. The fact that we have very high numbers in 2023, base effects will start to come in place towards the end of the year, and start to see those numbers moderate. How fast would see those numbers moderate now depends on many other policies. One of them could involve tightening monetary policies, because right now money supply is around over 70 trillion currency in circulation. We have about 92% of the currency in circulation outside the system, outside the banking system. Financial inclusion is also one of the issues that's still affecting the nation. And all these are some of the reasons why you see monetary policy systems. For example, the MPR has been tightened up to 18.75% and still has not really had so much effect on taming inflation. But of course, when you see most of this excluded people from the financial system being onboarded into the financial system, then the possibility is that you start seeing monetary policies being effective in curbing inflation. And so again, many of the regulations and reforms by the federal government, many of which are inflationary, if we start to take a phased approach with them, off on them a little bit, we could see that numbers coming to 21. I don't know how fast it's going to be, but of course, our fingers are crossed. Hopefully that will happen.
Finally, before I let you go, the CBN governor yesterday also hinted that pump price might reduce or would reduce owing to the fact that the refineries in Nigeria now are gradually coming on board. So how true is that? And do you think that that might also influence reduction in inflation this year?
Personally, I've heard a lot of this. A number of people have said that analysts and well-wishing Nigerians have also expressed their optimism that petrol prices will come down as a result of Dangote refinery. Personally, I don't think it's going to have so much significant impact on price of petrol because Dangote refinery, of course, is going to be selling as per international oil standards. It's also going to be refining based on international prices. As we know that prices are determined by one, international crude oil prices, exchange rate. Since rate is highly volatile at this point in time, we do not have power over international crude oil prices. So of course, I don't see that really having so much significant impact. It's not like it's not going to decline, but it's not going to be so much because then it's just going to be the differential between the landing cost right now and the cost of importation. And probably take a 10 or 20 naira away from the current price. Personally, it's not going to be so much. But of course, if there is stability in the price of petrol and many other things, food, imported inflation effect is stable, then we'll start seeing all those things permeate into inflation numbers. And you could see that, again, coupled again with base effect, you could really see it come to 21 to 23, 24%. But if you do not really tackle those major drivers of our inflation, which one largely is money supply, effect stability, food security, if you don't tackle those items, the chances are our inflation numbers will remain sticky.
Samuel Oyekomi, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah.
As Nigerians continue to grapple with the cost of living crisis, many households, businesses and individuals are becoming more creative in a bid to cushion the impact on their finances. For some small businesses, switching to LPG-powered generators has helped them reduce their running costs. News Central's Perpetua Fasimi Peter spoke to a couple of these business owners and experts to find out how sustainable this alternative is.
Undoubtedly has a pass-through effect on the prices of goods and services in Africa's largest economy. Due to this, households, individuals and businesses are beginning to cut costs or adopt measures to ensure that they reduce the impact on their wallets. Here, a cross-section of businesses have adopted the use of LPG-powered generators so they can reduce the impact of the high cost of premium motor spirit on their bottom line. Let's meet them.
When I was using petrol, in a week I spent almost 18,000, but now it's 112.5 kg lasts me a week. And I buy it between 10,500 and 11,000.
It consumes less and the price was reasonable then, but now, as we all know, the price of gas has also gone up. But if you compare the repair, how often you have to repair compared to petrol, it's far, far better.
And fuel is 650 now. Gas is 1.2. So we go back to fuel. We use fuel like 2 days, gas 3 days.
The enthusiasm that followed the initial switch to liquefied petroleum gas, LPG power generators may have waned with the rise in the cost of LPG per kilogram. However, analysts have some concerns.
These cylinders should normally be the ones that have the safety valves that prevents overflow or sudden flow of gas to the generator itself. And then let's not forget that the cylinder must be a cylinder that is in good condition and is supposed to be certified every 5 years.
When you change your systems, change your processes, you also do a new risk assessment. A new set of risk assessment within our workplace should be done.
Safety is a major drawback for these analysts. Hence, they're asking for measures to ensure safety.
So we also need SON to come into this picture. SON is a standard agency of Nigeria. Now, one thing we have to look out for is what are the installation kits we are bringing in? Who is bringing in this installation kit? I mean, what are the standards? I mean, what quality do they have? And this is where I think SON has a huge role to play.
If we know that people are adopting this much right now, then we should just put checks and balances in place. We should encourage people to use it if that's what they want to use, but ensure that proper checks and balances are put in place in terms of the quality of the materials that they are using at every point in time.
While switching to LPG generators offered initial relief for businesses struggling with rising fuel costs, the long-term sustainability of this solution remains uncertain. Balancing affordability with safety necessitates further due diligence and perhaps government intervention to ensure wider access to safe and cost-effective alternative energy sources. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Perpetua Fasami Peter.
In the world of sports, it's been 40 years since the Super Eagles of Nigeria lost to Cameroon in the final of the 1984 Africa Cup of Nations. Nigeria took the lead in that game in the 10th minute through the late Muda Lawal, only for the indomitable Lions to respond with 3 goals of their own through Rain Njaya, Theophile Abega and Ernest Mbogwe to win their first African title. 4 decades later, both teams will meet again at the same Hufei Bergny Stadium in the second round of the ongoing tournament. Sports historian and publisher Calvin Emeka Mbuka was 40 years old when that first encounter took place and remembers it quite well, but he believes the results will be different this time around.
How much left me is part of the things that have left this card, because going into that game, we were just bullied by the bigger, stronger, more experienced Cameroonian team. Abega, Audu Ibrahim, Roger Miller, Ernest Ebongwe, they were just too strong for us, and they won the game. They won the game comfortably, and I thought the officiating was very bad because they kicked lumps out of our good players, Henry Musu, Humphrey Edobo, Jeffrey Tokebe. They just kicked lumps out of them, and it wasn't fun. I was probably 14. I was 14 at the time, and it was very painful. I remember it to this day. It's part of the reasons why I can never support Cameroon in every football match. I tell you the good thing today. I'm happy that these players, I hope that they have no sense of history going into this game. I really hope so, because I would make them feel very free to play their game and not to bother that they're playing Cameroon. Does that make sense? Because that sense of history of the big matches that we've lost to Cameroon would inhibit them.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. Nigeria's Supreme Court affirms Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba governors' election victories. Human Rights Watch alleges Burkina Faso military drone strikes killed 60 civilians. Zimbabwe's opposition leader Chamisa quits CCC 2 years after its formation. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. And don't forget to also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Likon Onobanjo.